All right. So thank you all for being here. We are super excited. This is our first ever collaboration to really focus on maximizing your second year as a transfer student. So we'll just do some quick introductions to get things started. My name is Jackie Duerr. I am the program manager for Transfer Student Success. Natalie, do you want to introduce yourself next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Natalie Eicher. I'm the undergrad student affairs advisor for the Department of Political Science. Many of you should know me already from my emails or back messages or in-person advising when that was still a thing.
Hi, everyone. I'm Adarsh Parthasarathy. I'm an undergrad in poli-sci. I'm a fourth-year poli-sci data analytics major, and I have a second major, which is history. I'm also one of the transfer peer coaches in the Triton Transfer Hub.
All right, so before we get started, we just have a couple things we want to make you aware of. Feel free to have your video on or off during this. It's your comfort on that. Please mute your mics. They should already be muted, but just in case, unless you do plan to speak, in which case feel free to unmute, obviously. Use the chat feature to make comments or ask any questions you might have. And this will be helpful to us. We'll be checking the chat as we go. And we encourage you to chat with each other during this in case someone has a question, you might have a response. Feel free to respond to one another. Use the raise hand feature if you wish to share a story, share an experience. And keep in mind, as I mentioned, that we are recording. So what are we going to cover? We're going to cover quite a bit as we want you to start thinking about next year. You know, here we are in spring, you're wrapping up this year. You might be thinking about, what am I going to do this summer? What am I going to do next academic year? I know next academic year can be a very stressful time to be thinking of these big questions. And so that's what we're going to cover today is helping you sort through and make some baby steps along the way to those big questions you might have towards your second and for many of you, your final year at UC San Diego. So we're going to talk about using your time wisely during summer. We're going to talk about the career fair, leadership opportunities, getting involved in your department, the undergraduate research conference, information on how to research apply to graduate, professional, or law school. We're going to talk about making sure you do a grad check because it is your last year, and making sure you find your people at the Triton Transfer Hub. So to get things started, we have to start with what's coming up here and now, and that is summer. So I know some of you might feel like summer is a murky place right now. What are you doing this summer? Maybe you have very concrete plans. Maybe you're trying to make the most out of the fact that we're going to be inside during a COVID summer. Well, make sure you use your summer wisely. We're going to be talking a lot during this presentation about making sure you're doing research and researching your career interests, researching your graduate school interests. So really using the summer to spend some time on that. What motivates you? What makes you want to succeed? What is that light at the end of the tunnel? And with that, as you come to terms with what interests you, making sure you prioritize your needs. You know, for summertime, it's a time of relaxation, and it's a time where you can really grow and develop as an individual and a professional and a student. So what is it you need, and how do you make sure that you are meeting those needs? Create opportunities for yourselves. And what this means is, you know, sometimes, yes, internships provide great opportunities, but let's say you're looking to find an opportunity to get involved that's not necessarily in an internship. You have lots of chances to create opportunities for yourself. So there are case studies you can look into regarding specific topics of interest. These are your opportunities to create those. This is your opportunity to create opportunities. And then with that, you can use those opportunities to continue to build your resume and CV over summer. Now, keep in mind too, you might feel a little bit lost over summer, like, where do I start? What do I want to do? Please know that we're all here. And I say that with both positivity and also we're all here this summer. So please know that career counseling is available to you if anything should come up. You can connect with a trusted faculty member or TA. You can visit the Triton Transfer Hub, reach out to a peer coach, and you can definitely reach out to your department and college advisors to confirm your academic plan. We work over summer, so we are here if you need anything.
All right, everyone. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about career fairs and making career connections. So generally, the Triton career fairs are at the beginning of every quarter. Unfortunately, for spring, it had to be canceled. But definitely be on the lookout for virtual career webinars. Of course, if I hear anything from UCSD, I will pass that along to students. But by all means, see if there are any out there with your own research. And take part in them. Going to be free. That has been actually a really big benefit with all that has happened. Is I've noticed a lot of webinars or even some conferences have moved on and have adjusted what they're doing into the virtual world and have offered people to participate in them for free. So that's always great. And when you do partake in a career fair, whether that is virtual or in the future in person, you do want to plan ahead. You want to meet with different companies, explore different job opportunities, and just think about what works best for you. So of course, there are a lot of businesses and places that do hire within San Diego, but of course, think about what you have and what you want to do. So if you're not bound by location and you're willing to move across the US or even internationally, that's going to open up a lot more opportunities for you. And with political science, the great thing is that your degree can be valued anywhere in the world. One thing that started up this quarter is Triton's Connect. So this is a new opportunity to connect with alumni, staff, faculty, and your peers in an online forum for mentorship, career insight, and networking. Before I actually hopped on for this Zoom workshop, I was filling out my own profile as a staff member on campus. And just for fun, I took a look at how many people were political science majors, and there's over 350 people on the Triton's Connect website who were political science majors here at UCSD. So they are there and they're willing to connect with you, and it only costs your time. So definitely look into it. I'll probably be putting that resource on our department newsletter next week. But yeah, definitely check it out.
The other thing that is really important is taking on leadership opportunities. So looking to in-campus, the Political Science Student Association is a great way to get involved. And Pi Sigma Alpha, which is the Honor Society for Political Science. Something I'm personally involved in is Associated Students. I'm right now an executive in Associated Students, and I'll be terming out at the end of week 8. But there are, I think, 13 different executive positions that are open for application. So you don't actually have to run for these positions. And I would highly encourage you all to take a look at those applications and fill them out if you're so interested. I joined I joined last year when I had transferred last fall. So this is definitely something within your reach, even if you don't have previous involvement in student government. Mock trial is a great opportunity. From what I understand, our team is pretty good. They make it to regionals regularly, and I believe they've made it to nationals a few times in recent years. And Model UN as well is a really great advocacy opportunity. Kappa Alpha Pi is the pre-law fraternity. Probably heard of them referred to as Cappy. They're really popular. They have a ton of dedicated students. I know a few people in there. And the Law and Society Club is another way to really get involved on campus.
And then, of course, there are many opportunities in the department, even for those of you who are going into your second year. So one of them is the Research Apprenticeship Program. This is a winter and spring program. I didn't write it here, but for this one, the Faculty Mentor Program and the Senior Honors Program, you can get credit towards your major requirements for this. If you have questions, just let me know. The research apprenticeship program is a really great way to get research experience through the guidance of a PhD student in our department. So for those of you who didn't know, we also have a PhD program. So it's that nice balance of getting involved with research, even if this is your first time doing so, and then hopefully not feeling as intimidated because you're working with a grad student rather than a faculty member. But of course, there is the faculty mentor program on campus. This is tied to the department in the sense that as a political science student, you would enroll in Poly 199, which is independent study. But this program is run by the academic enrichment programs. And again, if you need more information about that, just reach out and I will refer you to them. It's a really great way to connect with our faculty and still do research. Then you have the Senior Honors Seminar Program. This is strictly a fall and winter program. This is where you're going to be doing your own research with some help from a faculty advisor and writing a thesis. And that thesis is evaluated by our faculty during the spring quarter. And shortly, actually, those students who are part of the program this year will be notified about their honors level. In our department, we also have the Alumni Mentor Program. Just looking at some of your all's names, I know that y'all are a part of this. And so I know it's been a little bit difficult with COVID, but we do hope that you are still connecting with your mentors. And this is something we plan to continue for years to come. And then there's also the Undergraduate Research Symposium. This is in the spring and it's more of a campus event. But I know Adarsh is a part of some of these programs and just has some thoughts to say about them.
Yeah, definitely. In my winter and spring quarter in my junior year, so last academic year, I did the faculty mentor program with 2 different professors. And it was the second most rewarding experience that I've had at UCSD. The most rewarding experience was when I turned one of the independent study programs into my senior thesis and ended up submitting that in March of just this past March. I also had the opportunity to present 2 different research projects at the Undergraduate Research Symposium, which if any of you are thinking about going into graduate school in terms of a research track, I think that the Research Symposium is a really great opportunity to be able to practice what it means to present your research to people who are educated in your field. It really helped me define and refine what I ended up using for my thesis. And it's just a really great exercise in public speaking. So I'd highly recommend participating in that if you end up having the time. So I think this is also my slide. The Undergraduate Research Conference, as I mentioned before, is it's hosted every spring and it's run through academic enrichment programs. All you need to do is, if you've been doing research with a professor so far, you can ask them to nominate you. Or if not, if you begin doing research with a professor, all they have to do is submit a pretty short nomination form so that you can present your project. It's, like I mentioned before, it's a really great way to road test your research. If you're thinking about taking some sort of research project further, it allows you to not only get questions from your fellow students, but also from the professors who are moderating the panels. And it also gives your research some exposure, which I think is really useful. There were a lot of instances where after giving a presentation, students were approached by professors, perhaps in different fields or even in their own fields, who provided them a lot of criticism, constructive of course, so that they could refine their research. And I definitely think that exposing the kind of stuff that you're doing behind closed doors to this environment is it's a really essential part of the research process.
All right, so some of you here might be interested in applying to graduate school. And so because of this, again, come next year, that might be something you're going to be doing is working on your applications. So these are some tips that you can take into next year you know, this quarter isn't over. So these are also tips that you can take on for the rest of this quarter as well. So really, when you're thinking about graduate school, the first place you can start to look is through talking to your professors and TAs, and keeping in mind that your TAs are actually currently in a grad program. So they're great resources for you to talk to. They've been in your shoes. So really great experience to talk to them. Make sure you're attending workshops and learning more about the process and options for yourself. You can look into the Career Services Center, Political Science Department, and other student support service units for opportunities to learn more about the application process. You know, these are the types of things, yes, you want to be thinking about now, you want to be thinking about early on in fall. So Adarsh, I want to just throw it to you really quick because I know you went through some of this process this year. Around what time were you starting this process, and what was that like for you?
So to give you all a little bit of background, I applied to law school this past fall, perhaps the most painful process of my undergraduate experience. But it's really important to make it as painless as possible. It's super important to start early and to make sure that when you hit the application season, which generally starts, I'd say probably around September is when most people are starting to get their stuff together, that you're not still at the stage of wondering, should I go to graduate school? What should I be applying for? Where am I applying? Those are really all questions that you want to endeavor to answer as soon as possible, and ideally by the end of summer. So definitely, I didn't end up attending many workshops. I did a lot of the process through my own independent research, but it's really critical that if you're unsure, you make sure to connect with the resources that are going to help you. And the Transfer Hub is a great place to do that.
Good shameless plug there, Adarsh. And certain factors you might be considering, and you know, really take some time and weigh how much each of these factors matter to you. Some things might matter more than others. So think about your location, where do you want to be, the types of programs, the requirements, so what tests you have to take. Cost might be a important factor, right? When the deadlines are for applications, any non-academic responsibilities, maybe y'all are also thinking about families that you're supporting, as well as timeline, right? So these are things you want to be thinking about. It's okay that some of these things you might value more than others, right? So so keep that in mind, that you'll be thinking of these things as well. So other things to be considering when it comes to applying to graduate school, you want to start studying for the GRE. Again, when you're thinking about timing, you know, it'd be great to get this started over summer so you don't have to think about it so much at the beginning of fall. Prepare a personal statement of purpose. Get specific. Why is a certain program and a certain faculty member the right experience for you? Make sure you mention your previous experience. Make sure you're reviewing and re-reviewing the application process and apply as early as you can.
And I'm going to speak at length about law school since this is something that I did. To give you a little bit of background, I took the LSAT in July of 2019, and I had studied for about 4 to 5 months prior of consistent studying. And over the summer, between the end of school in June and July, mid-July when I took the test, I spent, I want to say, 4 to 5 hours a day studying, which was hellish, but it was worth it. I ended up scoring in the 99th percentile during the LSAT. And then this year when I applied to law school, I got into several top 10 schools, and I'm right now committed to attending the University of Texas, which is a top 20 school. So I've been through this process, and I feel as though there are a few things that if people knew beforehand would really, really help them to make this process easier. The first thing is law school, as much as people would like to tell you that personal statements and stuff like that matter, and they do. You cannot skimp on personal statements or letters of rec or anything like that. The fact is, a law school's ranking is determined by the median GPA and LSAT score of the students. So the most important thing when it comes to evaluating an application, all other things equal, is your GPA and your LSAT score. A high LSAT score can counteract a low GPA because the LSAT's graded on a percentile scale. So by virtue, only 3% of applicants are going to get above a 170. But it's really important that these two numbers, they're going to be the main metric that a law school uses to evaluate you. An increasing number of law schools are using the GRE in admission because it's offered more times per year. You get your provisional scores, I think, instantly after submitting the test. So these are all advantages for taking the GRE. Not a ton of law schools are accepting them, but I'd say that if you're planning on applying to both PhD master's programs and law school, it would be worth looking into what law schools accept the GRE as an exam so that you don't have to take both tests, because that would be extremely stressful. The most important thing when it comes to studying for the LSAT or the GRE is to choose an exam date for your target and plan ahead. I mentioned that I did about 4 to 5 months of independent study, but 6 months is the ideal. If you can study for 6 months, you will enter the test as calm as can be, because you'll be sure that no matter what the test throws at you, you can answer those questions. And it might be worth it, depending on your learning style, to consider prep courses. I ended up studying myself, but for a lot of people that ends up being difficult to study outside of a classroom environment, especially if standardized tests are not something that you're strong on, I think it might be worth it to check out a Kaplan course or something like that. They do tend to be a bit expensive, but people have had a lot of success with them. But before you even go to prep courses, one of the greatest resources for studying for the LSAT is Khan Academy. The Law School Admissions Council, which they're the people who administer the LSAT and create it, has partnered with Khan Academy to create an LSAT prep tool. And I'd say that for the first 2 to 3 months of studying, that is the best way to get acquainted with what the test is like. They give you practice questions, they give you instant advice, they change the difficulty of the questions depending on how you're performing, and they have 10 free practice tests which were actually administered for the LSAT in the past. So it's an underrated study aid, and I highly recommend using it. It's one of the reasons I did as well as I did. And the final thing is reach out to free law advising. It always helps to have a second opinion about where you're planning on applying, what schools you think you want to go to, and simply why you may want to go to law school, because it's a massive investment. So having that discussion with someone is something that I found really helpful. I met with free law advising, and I think that it would be really helpful for everyone else as well. So a little bit about the process. Applying early is the best thing you can do because law schools are all rolling admission. I heard back from some schools 3 days after I applied. That's how fast some of these schools are. And then, of course, other ones take 10 months. But the earlier you apply, generally speaking, the better of a chance you're going to have, because you're in the minds of the admissions committee. And I realize it sounds kind of silly to think that the admissions committee is going to remember all the applicants. These people are extremely familiar with all the applications. It's kind of ridiculous. So applying before Thanksgiving gives you the best chance of making sure that your application sticks out, because after Thanksgiving is when the largest volume of applications is submitted, between Thanksgiving and the end of December. Also apply broadly. I applied to, I think, 13 schools from the top 10 to the top 25, and it definitely paid off. The reason why you want to apply broadly is because even if you're sure you can get into the school that you really want to go to, it always helps to have another school offer you money. And generally what's going to happen is you're going to get into a good school, and then a slightly lower ranked school is going to offer you more money. And what you can do is you can contact your dream school and tell them, hey, this school gave me $100K. Can you increase my financial aid offer? And this is something that I did throughout the process, and it's one of the reasons why I'm attending UT Austin next year, is because they increased my financial aid based on what other schools had offered me. Also, consider a gap year. It's not something that I'm doing because I ended up getting into the law school I wanted to get into, but an increasing amount of law school applicants take somewhere between 1 to 2 years of a gap between when they finish up their undergrad and when they attend law school. And a lot of law schools find that work experience to be incredibly important. Specifically, I know that Northwestern University is huge on work experience, and the percentage of applicants that are accepted out of undergrad is, I want to say, in the single digits. And finally, plan ahead. Make sure that you're finishing your personal statements over the summer. You have your letter of recommendations lined up from whichever professors or people in the workforce that you want them from, and have your YX essays. YX essays are basically small pieces. Generally, they're about 350 words of why you want to attend a certain school. And they offer school-specific reasons for why you want to go somewhere. And for some law schools, it is the make it or break it for whether they're going to admit you or not. So highly recommend preparing those beforehand as well.
All right, everyone. So like Jackie said earlier in the presentation, us staff are available during the summer. I definitely am as well. So please reach out. That's what I'm here for, here to help you and just to make it as easy as possible for you once you hit your second year. So just to throw in a little bit of advising math, the order of operations for a grad check, you would check with me first as your major advisor, and then you would check in with any other majors you have. So if you're a double major, you would check with them. And then if you have any minors, you would check with the advisor who oversees that minor to make sure you're on track. And then from there, you can connect with your college. Because when you meet with your college virtually, they will want to see that you've already received the information that you need from those other sources. If you just go straight to them, then they'll just kick you back to us. Now, this is concerning more of like a long-term plan, so quarter by quarter plan, 2-year plan. By all means, you can reach out to your college directly if you have questions that just concern their requirements. Again, quarter by quarter plans, degree audits. I know that the university switched to a different degree audit system. I believe it was January last year. So what y'all are seeing, that's what you're familiar with, but I know it can still be confusing. So if you have any questions about it, just reach out to me through the VAC and I can help clarify that for you. Something to keep in mind, for the most part, things transfer in fine. Everything's allocated as it should be, but I think definitely every quarter, I get students who connect with me and they say, hey, you know, I took some of these classes at my previous university or at my previous community college. Why are they not on my audit? And sure enough, I check and it looks like it's missing. And that's simply because the student may have taken courses that were at an institution that was out of state, whether that was a university or a community college, or even if the school was in California, maybe it was at a private institution or even a California State University. And so those classes don't really have the set agreements as the community college classes do. And so please check with me to make sure everything is okay. These things can be fixed. In the past, you just let me know. I ask for the course syllabi and just make sure it matches and it fits with our criteria. But yeah, please don't be that student who emailed me beginning of the spring quarter of their last semester here and was wondering why they were missing about 5 classes. Yeah, it turned out okay, but it was definitely a scare for both myself and that student. Again, just making sure you're checking in on your progress regularly. Again, this just ties into that documentation piece right there up on the screen. Just submit them in a timely manner because it's really hard for me to advise a student if they're telling me, oh, well, I'm taking this class in the summer, so I'll have to send the grades later, or yeah, I took some classes last year, but I just really haven't gone around to sending the transcript. Well, that doesn't really tell me anything about what you've completed. And once you send a transcript to UCSD, it takes many weeks for it to be processed, about 8 to 10 weeks. And that could even be longer during times like right now, spring and summer, when they are processing all of the new and incoming students who will be arriving in the fall. So again, just if anything, make sure that you're checking things. And so with checking things comes, the types of questions that you all ask. So of course, right now it's just the Virtual Advising Center, but I do have Zoom meetings with students if the occasion calls for it. So as far as Virtual Advising Center questions, you can send any and all questions there. And if I feel like it's more complicated, I will reach out and say, hey, I think a Zoom meeting would be best. Zoom meetings are usually for students who have questions about their double majors, if they are thinking of partaking in a program and just want to learn more about it. Really, anything that has to do with more complex matters is what I reserve those for. As far as how often you should be checking in on your classes and how many more you need or any other questions, quarterly is totally fine. If it's more, that's also fine. I would much rather have a student ask me more questions and get their questions answered than not at all. I'm here to help you all, and that's part of what I do, so I'm happy to do it. Again, don't feel bad for asking questions. I cannot tell you how many times I had a student come into my office and they're like, I'm sorry, one more question, or I'm sorry, I have so many questions, please, like, don't be sorry. The people who should be sorry are the people who don't ask questions in time. That's where the problems lie. I assure you, even if you think it's a silly question, it's good to ask because you'll know the answer. And sometimes if I realize that I'm getting multiple questions about the same thing, it makes me think about how that information is communicated. And if it's not being communicated effectively, then that encourages me to think about how I can change that, because I don't want things to be a mystery for you all.
And finally, come and find your people at the Triton Transfer Hub. We are all transfers, even Jackie was a transfer. And the whole reason why we created this and why we're a part of it is because we want to make sure that transfers have a place to go to get transfer-specific advising on academics, on social stuff, on whatever it is. The first part of that is peer coaching. So I'm a peer coach. We have a number of other peer coaches as well who do academic advising and can also help you get involved on campus. We're involved in all kinds of different things, from the All-Campus Transfer and Commuter Association, and Natalie was also a transfer. I forgot that. So everyone on this panel is a transfer, and everyone at the Transfer Center, the Transfer Hub, is also a transfer. So we can help you with academic stuff. We can help you with getting involved on campus. We have campus partners everywhere, so we know what's going on campus in terms of social events. And we have a study space in the biomedical library, which obviously not so much anymore with COVID. But once we all return to campus, we will also have a satellite location in Price Center. We've been holding academic and professional workshops since the beginning of winter quarter, which is when we really started ramping up operations. This is just one of those workshops, and as we head into next year, we're going to hold a lot more. And every week we hold online forums and activities. So we should be sending a newsletter out to every transfer, I think every week. And those contain the links to all of the events that are happening that week. So please look out for that. When we return to campus, we will be in the biomedical library as usual. And we will be in Price Center in the Transfer and Commuter Lounge, which is right next to the ATMs and Starbucks, if that helps. But until then, until we return to campus, we are definitely available online all the time. And the next slide is just some QR codes and links to our social media presence. We have Instagram takeovers. I will be doing that next week. I've never done that, so if you want to watch me fail miserably, please tune in. And we're on Facebook as well in the transfer groups, so check us out there as well.
All right, so just to recap some of what we shared with you, we shared some information about how important summer is. You know, a lot of what we talked about is getting you prepared for fall and getting you prepared to, you know, make some real tough decisions in fall, and using your time wisely then. So making sure you use your summer, use your fall wisely, making sure you're attending career fair and career events. Make sure you take on those leadership opportunities. Those can make a big difference in the job search, as well as just getting involved in your department opens up even more opportunities. Definitely participate in that undergraduate research conference. Make sure you're researching and applying to graduate, professional, or law school, getting your grad checks, and you know, reach out, find your people at the Triton Transfer Hub. So at this point, what we'd like to do, this is our contact information. So feel free to take a quick picture of the screen if you'd like. Reach out, we are here for you. And at this point, what we'd like to do is open it up. If there are any questions or anything specific you'd like to discuss, feel free to add it into the chat and we'll touch upon that.